everyone, to the ComedySportz Podcast with your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Today's special guest has been everywhere, but his heart is in New York. It's Papa Glenn Packman.
Hello, my wonderful listeners, and welcome back to the ComedySportz Podcast. It's me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. So excited to be sitting here with a new friend of mine that I think has the record for playing in the most cities for ComedySportz. Hey, everybody, let's welcome Glenn Packman. Hi, Glenn.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. No.
Before
you can even thank me, thank you for letting me do this. This is just, I'm so honored to be here, and thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, sir. Thank you so much for coming. This is just, it's really exciting to be talking to you, and I can't wait to hear your history.
There's a lot of it. I am old, people. Old. So there's dirt that's younger than me out there.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, for sure.
Well, I always like to start with where were you born and raised?
I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Okay.
Which is ironic because that's in Fairfield County near New York City, and I'm back there again. I've been back in that area since the 1990s. So even though I'm a member and one of the owners of ComedySportz New York, I actually live out in the suburbs. So
Okay.
That's where I'm from originally. Grew up outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and then bounced around in my youth. Lived in California for several years. Went to school in upstate New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
That's where I'm from. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from the suburbs.
I have a question.
Sure.
I love the show Who's the Boss from the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Tony Danza played Tony Maselli, was the housekeeper for Angela Bauer.
Right. I remember.
And they lived in Connecticut, but she worked in New York.
Right.
How long is that commute?
It depends on where you're living in Connecticut.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a short commute no matter what.
Right.
Connecticut has a little panhandle,
Okay.
If you look at it geographically, and the farthest south town is Greenwich. And that's only, honestly, if you're catching an express into Midtown, that's maybe 30, 40 minutes at the tops.
Oh, okay.
But Greenwich is prohibitively expensive. I mean, Greenwich is Greenwich with the clenched jaw, and, and the strand of pearls. It's that kind of community. It's very wealthy.
Okay.
And people are like, no, Greenwich isn't that wealthy. Yes, it is. It truly is. And honestly, the towns that are closest to the best commuter spots are the very prohibitively expensive towns. So to not be wealthy, like me, you live further out, and so the commute into New York is generally from where I live more like about an hour 15.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I've always just wondered.
Yeah, it's really, all things considered, there are people who live out in the nether regions of like the far ends of Brooklyn or out on Long Island that are spending more time getting into the city than we do from Connecticut.
Really?
So yeah, we're kind of treated like we're the other side of the planet by New Yorkers. We're really not that far.
Okay.
So and no slam to native New Yorkers, but there's a lot of people who think if you're outside of Manhattan, why bother?
Right.
Well, not anymore because Brooklyn is just taken off.
Okay.
So
Okay.
All the boroughs, they all have their appeal.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh gosh, I was kind of infatuated by the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be Mike Brady I really wanted to be an architect.
Did you really?
I really did, yeah. I've always had a knack for floor plans, just the logic of how a house is put together.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to do residential, and I was just discouraged by everybody about, they really didn't need a lot of residential designers.
Okay.
So they said. It was just people who were afraid I was never going to be Mike Brady. I could have been totally have been Mike Brady.
Totally would have been better than Mike Brady.
Right. But at the end of my work cycle, I sort of found myself falling back into something along those lines, and because I bounced around from career to career forever. And then finally when I was 50,
Okay.
I was working in the hedge fund industry, which is really great money and just completely soul-sucking, horrible work for people that are really just evil. Yeah. With apology to all the hedge funds out there, but it's true. It's a tough industry. I mean, it's cutthroat. And then when I was 50, I left my last crazy hedge fund job, and I just decided I was going to do something new. So one of my best friends is a realtor, and he was like, you have the analytical background, so now I'm a real estate appraiser for work.
Okay.
And that means I get to snoop around at people's houses and then tell them what the house is worth.
Okay.
And it's fun because I get paid for my opinion, and I have a lot of them. which is really annoying sometimes. To those who've had to listen to my opinions too much, I apologize, but I have a lot of opinions,
Okay.
especially about housing and now. So I need to do sketches for that and understand the dynamics of a house. So I sort of found my Mike Brady and later in life.
Sure.
Yeah.
All came back
It's been great to have a job that I would kind of do for fun anyways.
Yeah.
Is great.
What are some of the other careers you've had?
Let's see. I mentioned I worked in the hedge fund industry. I worked in office furniture.
Okay.
I worked in HR. I worked in legal.
Okay.
I worked at a gas station.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And the only other thing that I was ever really good at, I
Yeah.
mean, all those things, I was kind of mediocre, I'll be honest, but I was also a really good waiter.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed waiting tables while I could. It's just
I never waited tables. I was never
Really?
a waitress.
Oh.
Never.
what's the thing?
I pretended when I was a kid I'd play restaurant and I'd pretend, but I never did it for real.
Wow. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's It's hard work and it's very demanding and it's very stressful. I mean, you really have to you have to juggle a million things. But I really enjoyed the whole idea of giving someone service and having them have a really great experience. When they walked away from it and said, "This was incredible," and thank you for making it just a wonderful meal, and that somehow got to me. And it's the same thing as why I do improv,
Right.
Is because you can really affect people. I
Sure.
mean, you can see them light up and just, especially the people who've never seen improv before.
Right.
And then they come in, and especially ComedySportz, they come in and they see it and they're changed.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's the best. That is
Yeah.
the absolute best.
Oh,
It's almost like a high. It's kind of a drug. I should probably go into rehab for it, but I never will. I never will because, I'm always looking
'Cause
for
why
that.
quit?
Yeah, right.
Well, now you started doing improv
Mm-hmm.
in 1982.
Correct.
Tell me about that introduction to improv.
In the town that I did most of my growing up in Manchester, Connecticut, we
Yeah.
have a pretty sizable community college. And I was taking classes there, just non-matriculated, just working part-time, schooling part-time, just not, I was in a spinning wheels period. And one of the professors on campus who had been there for 1,000 years, he decided that he wanted to do an improv show. And I'd never really done improv before.
Okay.
So I didn't do the first season, but I saw the show, and then the light bulb went off. And I was like, I need to be part of this.
That was it, yeah.
So I just went to him and just talked to him, and I said, you don't know me, I don't know you, but if I'm not doing this next year, I will be really a horribly unhappy human being. So he was like, are you any good? And I was like, I don't know. So, but we found out, and, I've gotten better over the years. I don't think I was good at all in the beginning, but that's because it's a learned trait.
Sure.
But he was a wonderful teacher. He was actually Alan Arkin's father-in-law.
Alan Arkin's father-in-law.
Yes. His Dick Dana was the professor's name. His daughter Barbara was married to Alan Arkin for a number of years.
Okay.
They had kids together, and I met Alan once very briefly while
Really?
I was around. Yeah, nice guy, very nice guy. Met a couple of his sons. They were good people, and they were very supportive.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, fantastic.
But he was the one that got me sort of introduced, and then a couple of years later, ComedySportz in Hartford opened for a period of time, and I got a taste of that, and I was like, I'm done. This is it.
Well, what was it about improv that just got you?
I'm not really sure. I think I'm a natural goofball. I'm just one of those goofy people, and improv just sort of struck a nerve, and I love stand-up, but stand-up is hard,
Have you done stand-up?
I have done some stand-up,
Okay.
and I'm not cut out for it. It's stressy, and hats off to anybody who does, good, bad, indifferent.
Right.
Stand-up is just difficult. It's really standing naked on stage. And improv took sort of some elements of stand-up that I liked, but it had the background of theater, and then it had, with ComedySportz, the net of the rules of the game and the referee.
Right.
They're taking care of you, and the things that I liked about stand-up, but in a much more nurturing and more fun kind of way. I don't know if I'm putting that to words correctly, but that's what it felt like for me, anyways.
Yeah.
So they're not. The show really isn't anything like stand-up, but
Right.
there's a tinge of it there, and that
Sure.
just that's what I liked about it. Just making stuff up and making people laugh was just. It was the best.
Right.
Really.
Well, I think that's why we're all drawn to it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely.
So you went to Drew University.
Yes.
And got a BFA in dramatic arts.
I did, yeah.
What does dramatic arts mean?
It means the arts that are dramatic. Theater. It's the BFA in theater and all things theater related. It has not done a lot for my career.
Okay.
like any good major in the arts, it's hard to make money. But at that point in my life, I needed to get my degree in theater. It was something I had to suss out. I did kind of want to be an actor for a period of time, but I'm not much of a type. I've got sort of an odd voice, and my demeanor and my height and I'm just sort of gangly, and
Stop it.
Oh well, thank you,
Glenn. Knock it off.
I lived in LA for 5 years, and I was told all these things, to my face.
Oh, that's
they're
horrible.
brutal in LA.
Oh.
Come on, they're brutal. Oh, the things that I heard from people when I was trying to audition and make ends meet. But it's just because they're barbaric out there, because they are. It's a tough industry.
Yeah.
And you need to be tough. And the reason I didn't pursue acting was that it took one of my favorite things and ruined it for me. Mm-hmm. When you rely on it for money, when it becomes work, it just, for me, it was too much to bear. And I hate auditions. I really hate auditioning. And I fell by the wayside. But I was already part of ComedySportz, and then became part of ComedySportz in Los Angeles. So I never stopped performing.
Okay.
I just didn't want to do it for money.
Right.
And ironically, I did make some money performing.
Yeah.
I just wasn't enough to make a living.
Right.
But I had to have a job. So.
Well, and you started, you said, in Hartford, Connecticut.
Right.
How did that come to be?
In the early days of ComedySportz.
And this is like 1986 we're talking?
Yeah,
okay.
1985, 86. The organization was still relatively young. Mm-hmm. They decided to sort of like throw some seeds to the wind, and they took some of their key people and asked them to look into doing shows in markets that they thought would work.
Right.
And size-wise, Hartford would have been a great idea. The problem was that nobody had heard of improv in Connecticut at that point in time.
Yeah.
But they sent out a gentleman named Jay Patrick, who was from Madison.
Right, from Madison.
Right. Terrific guy. I mean, he was my ComedySportz mentor. And he opened ComedySportz Hartford, and that was my first taste of it, and those were my first shows. To be completely honest, the show never really took off.
Okay.
And it was because we just couldn't find a space and couldn't find an audience, and it was all those hard things. But we stuck together as a group for probably a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
So I mean, I did a fair amount of performing. We did some remotes. It gave me a flavor of what ComedySportz was about. He eventually closed up Hartford, moved it to New Haven and Boston, sort of one and the same. He had a little bit more luck in Boston, but I had already gone back to school at that point.
Oh, okay.
I was on the roster, so I was performing with them intermittently.
With Boston.
Yeah,
Okay.
the old Boston.
The old Boston.
Yeah, which is not connected to the new Boston. Shout out to Courtney Pong, who is their their owner operator. She is incredible.
Yes,
and has
fantastic.
carved out the most incredible team. They are just terrific people, and Boston is an amazing city. And I am so overjoyed, happy that they they've made a success of it, and I get to ref a match with Boston this championship, and I'm so excited about it.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then after Boston, you went to the other side of the country and went to Bakersfield?
Yeah, well, the story there is that after I graduated, I was like, I'm not going to hang out on the East Coast. I want to move to LA for a while. I had friends from college that were moving out there, so I had a little support network. When I moved into town, I contacted James Bailey, who is still a part of ComedySportz.
James Bailey.
Yeah, the icon, the man, the myth. He is
the man, the myth, the legend.
He is
James Bailey.
He is. And if I talk about greatest influences that I've had in ComedySportz, I can't not mention him. He's incredible. When I moved there, he had pretty much just opened ComedySportz in Los Angeles, and primarily he had worked for an ensemble theater group and pulled the talent from there, which was insanely smart because these were all really talented people who worked as professional actresses and actors, and he had a full roster of really high quality people. And in LA, you just can't go bumping people. You got to give them their shows and everything.
Right.
So, and he was really gracious and kind to me, but he was like, there's just no room at the inn. He did offer, he said, if you'd like to take some classes, I will gladly, put you in for free. But, so please stay active with us. I just don't have a spot on the team right now. And, I could have been like, oh, that's mean. But it wasn't. It wasn't that, It's a town filled with people who make a living performing.
Right.
So I had to respect that. That being said, I lived way out in the valley, which is not far from what they call the Grapevine, I-5. You go through that, and then you're in the San Joaquin Valley to the north, and that's where Bakersfield is. And I'd heard that there was a fledgling team out there.
Oh, okay.
Vastly different thing than LA.
Yeah.
Even though it's only, for me, it was only an hour and a half to the north. It was another planet because there's not a lot of people out there to perform. Right. So and they were getting pretty good audiences, but I spoke with their owner and I was like, yeah, I'm taking classes with James right now, but there's no room on the team. And she was like, then come up and play with us, for God's sakes, please. They just needed the talent. They had the shows and not enough people to field.
Oh, okay.
So it was the polar opposite. And so I started making the drive just so that I could be on stage. Yeah. It was a little bit duplicitous, and I apologize for that. No one had really done that, but I figured, well, I'm still going to be very active in LA.
Right.
And maybe sometime we'll come where I'll play with them. But in the meanwhile, I was helping out this Bakersfield team, and they really came into their own. They became really very good.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of tutelage involved there, but it was really just more a lot of positive energy from the people that lived up there. Their former owner was a gentleman named Johnny Mansbach, who I'm still friends with today. And Johnny was just that warm, inclusive guy. He made Comedy Sports a home. And I was with them for a couple of years. And then one night I got a call from James just saying, I'm low on players and I need you.
Okay.
And that was it. And I was like,
see you, Bakersfield.
Well, kind of. I mean, they understood because I was driving a long ways and I had been for a long time. And this was in my backyard. I mean, it was always the goal. And I think they understood that. It was a little hard, you know, loyalties and whatnot. But on the flip side, I'm a performer. I just wanted to perform. Mm-hmm. So then I performed with Los Angeles for a number of years until eventually I lost my job. My lease got unleashed from underneath me on my apartment. And it was time to go home. So I moved back to the East Coast.
And you went back to the East Coast.
Back to the East Coast. Those were the dark years because I wasn't living anywhere where there was a ComedySportz. I was way up in central Connecticut, and it was too far from New York. Then I
honestly didn't think Connecticut was that big.
Connecticut isn't that big, but we have a lot of traffic. It's
because you're saying like one area it's like a half hour to Manhattan, another area is an hour and 15.
Right, it is. What I'm talking about in the Hartford area, that's a good 2.5 hours.
Really?
So, yeah, yep.
Tony Maselli.
Yeah, exactly. Hartford's actually closer to Boston, but there was no ComedySportz in Boston either at that point. So I wasn't doing anything. Then I got work back down in Fairfield County outside of New York. I was there for a couple of years, and then I just heard that there was a New York group. And I was like, wait, what? So I reached out, and sure enough, one of the people that owns New York was Jill Shealy, who I already know. And I contacted her, and I said, do you need people? And she was like, sure, come on down. And
nice.
Yep, and that's already going on 20 years ago.
20 years since...
Well, 19 at this point, but almost, next year.
That you've been playing with New York.
Yeah, they reopened New York under the new owners. The previous... owners were the guys known as the Bert Furschners.
Right, the Bert Furschners.
Yeah, and the only reason they stopped doing ComedySportz was because they got busy doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Busy with life.
Right, busy with life, busy with performing.
Yeah.
They finally turned the license over to Jill and another owner back then, and that was 2004.
Okay.
I came in 2005, so next year it'll be 20 years with ComedySportz New York.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it's crazy.
And have you been in the same... like theater that whole time, or have you guys moved around a lot, or where does New York play?
Sort of mostly. The pandemic messed us up.
Pandemic just messed everything up.
Damn pandemic. Pandemic, if you're listening, the heck with you.
Right, don't come back.
Don't come back ever.
Lame.
You're uninvited.
Yes.
We were at the Broadway Comedy Club. The joke is it's not on Broadway.
Wait, let's pause for laughter.
Thank you. Yeah, on West 53rd, we were there for a number of years. It was a good space, bad space situation.
Yeah.
The room was right. The location was right. Comedy club people are the unfunniest. I don't know what it is about the people who operate comedy clubs, but they can really be not funny or nice and have no sense of humor. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
It's like I own an orange plantation, but God, I hate orange juice.
But don't give me citrus.
What? And we had a good relationship with them, but we were never really like top billing. We're just sort of like the wacky neighbor next door. They weren't ever mean to us, but we'd never really, we got bumped a lot unceremoniously. It was hard, but we were there for a long time. They shut down during the pandemic. Then post-pandemic, so many spaces had closed that we had a hard time finding space. And just recently, here comes the big plug. We started in a new space in the Dumbo neighborhood of Brooklyn. And just for those of you who don't know, Dumbo stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. Oh. It is a very hip, cool.
Hip and trendy.
Oh, it is like, it's the trendiest neighborhood I can think of in Brooklyn, or at least that I've been to. It's just cool. A lot of celebrity. Yeah, a lot of people suddenly very interested in Dumbo. And it literally, the Manhattan Bridge, the overpass is like literally 20 stories tall, and it just soars over the neighborhood. Wow. And that's where it is. Yeah, it's very cool.
So what celebrities have you seen there?
I have not seen any, but I know that like Brad Pitt was looking over there at one point in time. Hey, Brad, hope you're doing well. Haven't heard from you lately, bud. Give me a call.
Call me,
baby. But it's just food scene is awesome.
Nice.
The vibe is incredible. It's a neat area. And one of our owners is also one of the owners of a new performance space. The Random Access Theater, also abbreviated as the Rat.
Okay.
So how ironic that we're naming a space after rats in New York. But yeah, we're at the Rat in New York. It's a small space.
Okay.
Tops 30, 40 people, and that would be really pushing it. But that's okay, because it means that when you get a crowd of 20, it feels like it's sold out. It feels like And honestly, in New York, there's so much entertainment to choose from that we're okay with a small house. We really are.
What kind of crowd is it? Is it family? Is it young adults? Is it?
Well, we're new and we're still working on the crowd.
Yeah.
So what I've seen a lot of so far is, if you get the people from the neighborhood, it's going to be a lot of young urban professionals. So they're not yuppies. We don't use that term anymore, but they're young and they're urban and they are professionals. So.
Until they're yuppies.
Yeah. Well, but it's not that yuppie mentality.
It's different.
So we're really, we're making the push to get families in and whatnot. So we are a fledgling team once more.
Okay.
And we're going through all of the growing pains where that's concerned, for sure.
Yeah.
The thing that breaks my heart is I'm a good ways from Brooklyn now. So it's a good, front door to front door, it's at least 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you have to go way down. So my other team owners have been tremendous in helping out where that's concerned.
And how many shows do you guys have a week?
We're doing just one a week, one every other right now. We're still working out the schedule with the new space. I mean, it's totally a work in progress right now, because it is a brand new space, and they're bringing in different acts, but you can see that this is going to be something. You know, if you ever come down and visit us, and please do, because we would love to see you. There's just great food in the neighborhood. And it's only, if you want to get into Manhattan, it's just a subway ride away. So.
Right.
And that's the great part about New York, is that you're just a subway ride from everything.
Yeah, my husband and I, before we got married, we went to New York for the first time in our lives, and we loved it. We were there in a week in August, and it was kind of rainy the first few days, so it was kind of cooler. And I remember we were walking around Manhattan, and we're like, this is great. We could live here. Let's move here. By the end of the week, it got really hot and really stinky, and neither of us could breathe anymore. And we're like, we can't live here. We have to go home. But we loved it for a week.
And that's New York. That's New York in a nutshell. I've lived near the city for a huge portion of my life, but never in it. And it's kind of for those reasons, I like to joke and say that New York is a city of a million smells. 3 of them are pleasant.
So what did you see as different between those 5 cities that you've performed in? Hartford, Boston, Bakersfield, LA, New York. What are the differences that you saw?
Such a different vibe between all of those towns. The amazing part for me is that doing a brand of humor, or even a style, or even shtick, just might kill in one town and die in another.
Really?
So when I was living in LA, I would do sort of the firm referee. Almost I don't want to say abusive, but, just that guy that, you just didn't want to mess with.
Yeah.
And they loved it. They ate it up. A little, I would never be a drill sergeant, but there was elements of that in there.
Yeah.
I took that to New York. They hated it. And ironically, New York can be a very brusque kind of town. We all know that. It's New York. Why? Get out of my way. I'm walking you. It's that. And I thought for sure they'd love it in New York. Nope.
Really?
Just didn't fly there. And that was tough for me because I was like, okay, if I'm going to ref a match, I need to do this completely differently.
Right.
So, and it just meant sort of scrapping everything. But Bakersfield is a big working class city in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley, which is agriculture and petroleum. And it's not the arts center that Los Angeles is, different audience, different kind of show, different levels of appreciation. So it just, you really have to learn your crowd. Same thing with New York. We get a lot of tourists in New York, so that shakes things up for us. But yeah, every team had a different vibe.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And every audience too from the different cities?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, my first shows in LA were at the Ice House, which is a long-standing comedy club.
Okay.
That was a comedy club crowd, and it was just, raucous, and they were there for, ironically, we took a slot that I think it was Sundays at 9, which sounds horrible, but it wasn't, because the owners of the club, very smartly, they did this thing where they were like, they would leave fish bowls all over LA, and they were like, drop a business card in and win, quote unquote, 10 free tickets to the Ice House.
Oh, okay.
Well, everybody won. Anybody who dropped in, they were like, hey, congratulations, you got 10 free tickets. The catch was they had a 2-drink minimum, and that's how they were making the money.
That's how they get you.
So we were going in, and there were people that had won free tickets, and they were there at this odd time, and they were getting liquored up, and we gave them improv, and they were expecting stand-up. And boy, nobody walked away unhappy with that. I mean, I had so many people just say, I really thought I was going to see stand-up tonight, but this was so much more fun. And I'm like, thank you.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was a great, But that, again, different crowd than what I was playing in Bakersfield. Way different than anything in Connecticut.
Yeah.
For sure.
For fascinating.
For sure.
So tell me about, you were at the very first ComedySportz Championship, or what we called tournament. In 1988.
In 1988,
Tell me about that.
Oh my God. This is like ancient history.
Well, my listeners might not know. Championship or tournament is when all these players from all the cities around the country, even the world now, come to one particular city that's hosting, and then just have a bunch of workshops and teach classes and play shows together. And so the first one was in 1988 in Milwaukee.
Correct.
So tell me about that.
Well, it was really interesting because it was the first one, and they really, I don't want to say they didn't know what they were doing, but they had no idea what they were doing. And it was all just, the whole idea was, hey, let's get everybody together.
Sure. Let's just have fun.
We don't need to do anything more than that, right? Yeah, we do. But they did a tremendous job scheduling the shows. We performed at Kult's, which is the little German restaurant. I couldn't even tell you where it is.
Right, on Oakland, the east side of Milwaukee.
Right, there you go. And then we also did some shows at the Todd Ware, which here is still around.
Correct,
so
yes.
much bigger. There weren't that many teams, so it meant we performed several times a week. And I came with the team from Hartford.
Right.
And we were we were really relatively new, and we were fledglings, and we just had a tremendous time. We bonded with some of the teams, specifically the team from San Jose. We just sort of hooked up with them. We're like, okay, you're our buds.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with Jeff Kramer to this day, who's still working in San Jose.
Sure.
But it was just, they wanted us to have free lodging, so we stayed at a nurse's dormitory, which looked really more like a prison than it was like this cinder blocky steel bed, and there was no air conditioning, and it was at least 5,000 degrees out. So there were goods and bads, but it was a learning process. There were no workshops, and that was something that came up when everybody was discussing. But I mean, the whole group of people was maybe 30 people total-ish, I'm going to say, roughly.
Okay.
And we had different varying levels of experience, too.
Right.
So we had Milwaukee and Madison, which were just, already entrenched in comedy sports. San Jose was, very established. But like Hartford, and there was a team from Ann Arbor. We were new. So, but fun.
Yeah.
I mean, the best part for me was that Hartford was struggling to get the show really off the ground and running.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was performing with Hartford at the Todd Ware and for hundreds of people. And it was like,
wow.
Well, it was like, so this is what it can be, and that just, I never lost the addiction to that. So,
right. Well, because like you said, Milwaukee was already established. We had audiences, and to see that then.
Yeah, we were floored because we were, just talking to people around town. It was like, oh, you're not from here? No, I'm here doing comedy sports. Oh my God, I love comedy sports.
Right.
So, and you still get that,
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. So it was really interesting. The only thing that was a negative, if I can speak out of school, there were a couple owners that took the competitive thing a little difficultly.
Yeah, what happens?
They weren't nice people. And it was funny because they brought teams. They were like, please just ignore my owner and the hyper competitive nature because we're great people. So
some people do get a little too competitive.
Sure. Well, and I think there were a couple of people that felt like they had something to prove.
Right.
And I kind of want to say that's human nature, right?
Yeah.
But just do it by being yourselves. You're not going to fail.
Right.
Just be the team from fill in the blank.
Yeah.
You'll have your own personality and go from there. But I made friendships there with people that I will be friends with for the rest of my life.
Have you been to every tournament since?
I have not been to every tournament.
Okay.
No. The dark years when I lived away from comedy sports, I missed a bunch. Mm-hmm. But I've been to a lot. I had to miss a couple in my iteration with New York, but since 2008, I've been to most of them.
Nice.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I want to hear about some of the things you've done as far as teaching, particularly the free play improv comedy at Wilton High School.
Wilton High School, where I live now. I live now in Wilton, Connecticut, which is population 18,000. It's very much the bucolic Connecticut suburban town in many ways. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
They call it a handsome small town. That's what it is. We sort of ended up there by accident, but it's nice. The woman who teaches theater and English at the high school is a former ComedySportz player from Chicago. Heather DeLude is her name.
Okay.
I did some improv with Heather years ago, and then years later, she ended up teaching in Wilton, and I ended up living in Wilton. And she contacted me and asked me to come in and do some workshops with the kids initially, which I did. And I was just sort of there doing the occasional, stopping by once in a while. To be clear, I never felt that I was the strongest teacher in the world. I don't know why.
It's not for everyone.
Well, I think for me, it's imposter syndrome is that, I'm like, I'm not really good at this, So, and I don't want to teach anybody wrong either. So I've always kept the teaching to a minimum. She encouraged me by offering me money.
Can't go wrong there.
Yeah, really. So last year, she contacted me and just said, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time for my family, and I need you to take a bigger stake in teaching the kids. She meant coming down for, just about every practice. And the only format that I felt truly comfortable in teaching the kids was ComedySportz.
Oh, okay.
It was already a short form show.
Yeah. But
the way they were doing it meant for a very big sprawling cast. And I was like, the only way that in my mind that was going to work was to bring in the ComedySportz format.
Yeah.
And so I ran that past her and she was like, let's see what the Board of Ed has to say. So we put together a little presentation. We got some clips and everything. The Board of Ed went out of their minds. They were like, another sport at the school?
Oh my God.
Can you letter in this? Can you get a letterman's jacket? And I was like, technically?
Sure.
Sure, if you want. So this past year, we brought in the ComedySportz format. We rehearsed for 3 months. We did 3 shows in January. And I am so insanely proud of my kids.
Oh, that's great.
It's after school.
Yeah.
So they don't feel like they have to be there.
Right.
They want to be there.
Yeah.
And the sporting element really resonated with a lot of them. There's a lot of kids, a lot of these kids are never going to be jocks, and they get to be a jock.
Right.
It's a comedy jock. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And they felt this level of inclusiveness and family. And I'm like, yeah, that's the ComedySportz thing going on. It really is. I mean, the people that I know from ComedySportz, they are a whole family to me. They really are.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring that in, and it just took off. And the best part about it is that the board, in this kind of stodgy little Connecticut town, is over the moon about the product. And that's great. That makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
The kids can't wait to do it again next year.
And they just loved it from the get-go.
Yeah, there were a couple kids that missed the old format a little bit because they did weave in a little bit of long form.
Okay.
And so there were a couple seniors specifically who just didn't like it as much.
Sure.
They weren't negative about it, but they were just like, no, I missed the old thing.
Yeah.
But so many of the kids liked the new format.
Okay.
And we still call the group Free Play because that's sort of like the club at the school.
Okay.
That's how it all got born. And I don't ever want them to lose that name.
Yeah.
It gives them identity. But Free Play presents ComedySportz, and we did our first high school league as commissioned by the New York team because that's the umbrella they fell under, and the kids were just terrific.
Are you going to get other high schools involved? Like high school
maybe.
league?
I don't know how much time I can spend doing it is what it comes down to. So if I can find other people, but I would love to do that.
Yeah.
We did that in LA years ago.
Right, yeah. LA had a huge high school league.
Huge high school league, yep.
I don't know if they do post-pandemic.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would have to ask them about that, but I'm going to name drop here. One of the kids from one of the high schools that I worked with is Jeff Davis.
Okay.
Who is, now working with Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Right.
And pretty much famous.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeff, if you're listening. Jeff was a high schooler when I was out there, and massively talented.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew he was going to be great.
So you found your niche teaching improv now. You started saying you weren't the best teacher, but now teaching ComedySportz, that's a huge comfort level for you.
You know what it is I don't look at it as teaching, it's coaching, and I think that's the difference, But, I'm also nervous about it because I have a really good group of kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're not always going to be that good.
yeah,
right?
I know. And, kids should be tough, but even the kids with, who bring in some baggage, just, high school baggage, they still feel for them. They're still, they're still like my little family now. So,
yeah. And they're there, like you said, because they want to be. They don't have to be.
Right.
This is extracurricular.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes a difference. Well, you have lit up talking about this, so I'm glad.
I'm really proud of, I never thought it would fly. I thought it was going to be a crash and burn, and it was just the opposite.
So you go into things with low expectations.
There you
and
go,
they
right.
turn out really good.
You set the bar real low.
Right.
It's not,
You're like, this is going to suck.
You can get over that really easy. But no, they did a terrific job. I'm being a little facetious because I saw them do short form before, and I knew they could be very good.
Sure.
But they just took the new format and ran with it.
Okay.
And the best part is it's a big group. It was like 30 students.
Oh, wow.
And we sussed it out. We did a format where just about everybody got to play.
Okay.
So that's the best part, is just getting them on stage. You know? So the seniors got more playing opportunities than the juniors and the sophomores, et cetera.
Right.
But, it'll all... I had one of my freshmen say, "Oh, when do I get to play 5 matches?" And I'm like, "When you're a senior."
So you're definitely going to go back and do it next year.
It seems that way. They have to invite me, of course.
Okay.
They have to come up with the funding.
Sure.
But the show was a moneymaker for the school.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
So they see value and worth in it for that. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you also mentioned this was short form. I want to talk about your long form group. You're a founding member of the Fairfield of Dreams.
Yes.
Tell me about that group.
Fairfield of Dreams came together sort of accidentally in Hartford, Connecticut, which is the other direction from New York, from where I live, about an hour and 15 drive the other way.
East Coast people are just used to traveling a lot. Huh?
Yes, we drive a lot. Okay. In the suburbs, we drive a lot. And I'm from the Hartford area, sort of. I mean, that's where I really grew up. So I'm used to going up there all the time. But there's now a strictly improv theater in Hartford.
Okay.
CT Improv, spelled SEATEA. So not CT like the letter CT Connecticut, which is our abbreviation, but CT. Yeah. And they are a tremendous little theater.
Okay.
It's not a big space either, maybe 100 seats. But they organize the Hartford Improv Festival. They do shows every weekend, Friday, Saturday. It's a terrific little space right in downtown Hartford. So it's a venue to do improv in the state of Connecticut, and the only really active one that is doing it. Because down in my neck of the woods, if you're going to see theater, unless it's a local community theater doing, a typical show, you're going to go into the city, especially for something like comedy or improv. People are just they're not going to do that in Connecticut, at least not in Fairfield County. CT has managed to bring improv to the people in Hartford, and they're making a go of it. They do a thing called a cage match.
A cage match?
Cage match.
Yeah.
Essentially, they pit two long-form teams against each other, and then the audience votes.
Okay.
So because we were coming up all the way from one end of the state, we never had a lot of people in the audience, so we've done a zillion cage matches and have not won a single one. We don't expect to. I mean, it's always it's going to be favorites. But we did a cage match, and a couple of us were like, this is fun. And then one of the guys from that group just pulled together 4 more of us and just brought us together, and we were like, hey, we need to name this. And so Fairfield of Dreams came up.
Okay.
And that was already 7 years ago. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've been performing primarily at CT, but we've done a bunch of other little things on the side. But it's definitely a different improv than ComedySportz.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more like theater. Yeah, it's definitely more arts oriented. It's still funny, but it was a great educational experience for me because I had done nothing but short form. This is a secret. Okay. I was the idiot who didn't really understand the difference between... People were just suddenly talking about long form and short form.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. And I had no idea what they were talking about, literally for years. And I was like, the hell with this. So I finally was talking with Chris and was like, yeah, I'm practically an owner of a short form team, but what's the difference? And he was like... do some long form with me so you get it firsthand. And that's when I learned. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. Okay. No one had just ever explained it to me.
Well, explain it to our dear listeners. Glenn.
Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. How long is this podcast? Short form is based on theater games and is shorter segments with rules. So long form is generally more free form. There are some structures that you can do for a show. The Herald, the Armando, but generally speaking, long form is much more organic, longer scenes. What we did in Fairfield of Dream was we took 2 words from the audience and then just did a series of scenes based on those words with wipes in between. And those scenes ranged from, sometimes 30 seconds to sometimes 10 minutes, depending on how the scene was going. So long form is really, in my estimation, and no hate mail for this, but long form is more like theater and short form is more like comedy for me anyways. It just, it works better for me to think about it that way.
What do you like better doing?
Oh, gosh. That's such a tough question because I've done short form for so long, but I really enjoy long form. I think because short form is my home and I feel more comfortable with it, maybe that. But I've really come to appreciate a long form show. What I don't appreciate is that there's a core of people out there who think that one is better than the other, and they should stop that.
Stop it right now.
You're being mean.
Right.
They're 2 different forms.
Right. Totally.
It's like saying, well, Impressionism versus abstract art. Duh, abstract art is so much better. No, well, what? Stop, There's some great Impressionists. There's some terrific abstract painters. It's art,
Right.
And I've seen tremendous performances of both. I mean, I've seen some ComedySportz shows that have just were side-splittingly funny.
Right.
And I've seen some long form that is just, amazing.
Yeah.
It really, there's different nuances to both. And I think you can cross over. That's the other thing. I think a lot of people are like, I've seen it, unfortunately, firsthand. A lot of people are like, oh, so you do a lot of short form, so you're not really very good at long form then. And I'm like, I don't know. I got to be good. Yeah. I was like, that's chudgy and mean.
Right.
But yeah, you do see that from some people sometime, and it's sad and unfortunate. But there's room in the world for both, obviously. And I think a lot of it is that there are core people out there who are comfortable with doing one and not the other. So maybe they feel the need to poo-poo the other one that they can't do. Don't do that. It's just, if you try hard enough, you can learn. There's room for all of it, and we should celebrate every last little bit of it.
Well, in your study at Drew University of Dramatic Arts,
yeah.
How did that help you now that you're doing more improv, do you fall back on anything you learned in college?
Yeah, all the time. Getting a degree in drama means also learning how to build a set. It means learning how to stage manage. It means learning how to do theater finance. The list goes on and on. So it's very broad. The one thing they didn't really have classes for was improv. But I did improv at Drew. So I founded a little group at Drew with 4 of us. Yeah, it was definitely Guy-prov. It was just young college guys just goofing off. But it was still fun.
Yeah.
We were very successful on campus for sure. But all the knowledge of theater just trickles down into life.
Sure.
And, if I may, my husband of going on 20 years, he has taken so much of the core constructs of improv and pumped them into business.
Really?
And they've made him a better manager.
How so?
He's learned that improv is all about trust and respect. He really believes in the whole concept of yes and. Not just on stage, but in business.
Yeah.
When you're working with people, to yes and them means you're promoting that creativity and you're promoting, collaboration.
Yeah.
And he really really takes these things to heart and brings them into business. And he's a tremendous manager.
That's great.
He's had some terrific teams. He's the guy who, when he leaves a job, he stays in contact with all the people that he's worked with.
And he's seen you in lots of shows.
Oh God, too many. Yeah. He's gotten to the point where he's seen so many comedy sports shows that he's pretty much at the back taking mental notes. So he only tells them to me.
So he's never done workshops or anything?
No. He's not an actor. He's not much. No, he's not a performer. It's just he leaves it to me. So, and I could never do it. He does for a living, so it works. But he's seen enough improv that he can really give some notes. And boy, he doesn't pull any punches. With me, I would never tell my team because I don't want them to hate him. They do love him. So,
what do you think you bring to a show? What are you known for when an audience sees you again and again and again?
Gosh, it took me so many years of my life for me to really be comfortable in my own skin. I didn't have the best childhood. And here I am. I'm 62, by the way.
Okay.
And I'm still talking about my childhood, because that's what childhoods can do to you.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of bad things in my childhood. I learned that I was never good enough. I learned that, I was just the one who people just really enjoyed pointing out how much of a failure I could be. So a lot of that emotional baggage got pulled in. And it took me years and years of improv to realize I don't need to try to be better than anybody. That's the first thing I tell my kids. Don't think that somebody is better than you. They're not. They're themselves. And that's what I really like to bring to the match is I just want people to see a little bit of me on the stage. So there's that vulnerability, definitely goofy, a little bit snide sometimes. It can be, but not in a mean way. I'm a nice guy. I don't believe in hurting people.
Yeah.
I just, it's taken a lot for me to get to that point, but that's really, if I can bring anything to the stage, it's like, I just kind of want to be me out there. And, So, but I also enjoy so much. I enjoy doing characters and accents and voices. And so I love bringing that to the stage too. I just, more than anything else, I just want people to laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still an approval seeker. I mean, I never lost that.
And tell me about Papa Glenn, your nickname. I love to hear origin stories of nicknames.
All right. So, like I said, I'm 62 now and I'm still doing this. And I used to be one of the kids.
Yeah.
I did my first show in 86. I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
And it seems like yesterday, and I still feel like that kid in a lot of ways. But I'm definitely the ranking elder on our team. I'm the oldest player we have. And just one of the players out of nowhere just started calling me Papa Glenn because I'm as old as his dad.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean it with any sort of disrespect. It was just the opposite. It was just like, no, that's my niche on the team, And for somebody who has zero parenting gene, and I mean none. I don't have any of my own kids. I've got 3 stepkids.
Okay.
The whole idea of me having a child just almost makes me laugh because I just don't have any sort of feel for that. I don't mind that nickname at all because they are like my kids,
Right.
you know? And that's how I feel about them, and I want to protect them and, make sure they're loved and doing great improv. So
I love that. And so that just stuck, huh? Now you're Papa Glenn.
No, the team calls me Papa Glenn. So it's rolled over into real life because now I have 3 grandkids, and that's my nickname with them.
Oh, they call you Papa Glenn,
They call me
too?
Papa Glenn, yeah.
Oh, I love that. I need to make you a shirt.
Yeah, I will wear it. I will wear my Papa Glenn shirt.
I love
for sure.
that.
Yeah.
All right, well, a quick lightning round here before we play a couple games.
Okay, I'm a little afraid.
No, it's super easy.
Okay.
Favorite comedy sports game?
Oh, God. Oh, that's so hard. I think because I lived in LA, the Comedy Sports Game Audition is still one of my favorites. It's musical and it's fun and it's about the audition process.
The audition process, yeah. And
dying to be lampooned, So and it's not played a lot either. So definitely one of my favorites.
All right, favorite ice cream flavor?
In Connecticut, we have, and this is a shout out, we have a place called Ferris Acres Creamery. It's a farm where they make their own ice cream.
Nice.
They hired the guy who I believe ran the agriculture program at the University of Connecticut or had strong ties with, and they have a great dairy up there. But they hired him or somebody like him. I don't know the exact connection, but of great importance. Either way, Ferris Acres makes the single best ice cream I have ever had in my entire life.
Okay.
They make a flavor called Campfire, which is vanilla with ribbons of chocolate, marshmallow, and graham cracker in it.
So like a s'more.
It's a s'mores ice cream. And I mean, girl, this is so good. It's like,
All right, favorite Golden Girl?
Favorite Golden Girl, Blanche.
Really?
Yeah.
No one's ever said that.
Really? Oh, God. Well, they're all great.
You're speechless.
Well, I am speechless. I thought everybody would have said Blanche. All right, I'm just going to say something really stupid, but maybe tangentially correct. Maybe being the gay man means I have to say Blanche.
It's got to be.
It's got to be.
Rue McClanahan.
Did you guys not figure out when I mentioned my husband that yeah, okay, well, now you know. Okay.
Three's Company. Mr. Roper and Mrs. Roper or Mr. Furley?
Oh, God. I had someone in college who used to call me Don Knotts all the time.
Stop it.
Yeah, well, I took 3 years off to gain some money and get off my parents' taxes so that I could get better financial aid. Mm-hmm. So I was older than everybody in my program. Mm-hmm. And because I was suddenly the old man, there was this one guy who used to call me Don Knotts all the time, and I hated that. So I got to
we're going to go with the Ropers.
The Ropers, for sure.
Definitely.
I think I would anyways, even if I didn't have the terrible... And no disrespect to Don Knotts, but I really didn't feel like a Don Knotts.
No.
So, but yeah. And I mean, come on, Mrs. Roper's caftans. I mean,
come on.
Hello. She would come out and be like, "I want that." All right.
Right. All right. Favorite bird.
Favorite bird.
Yeah.
Bird.
I'm a birder.
Oh, you're a bird.
Don't judge me, Glenn.
No, not judging at all. So I live in this semi-suburban, almost rural little town where we have a lot of wildlife.
Yeah.
Coyotes, bear. Fox, rabbits galore, all of that. So we get a lot of birds. I am a big fan of the cardinal. They're sweet. They always travel in pairs. And when it snows, there's nothing more beautiful than a bright red cardinal sitting there in the midst of a fresh snowfall.
Have you ever seen a cardinal molting?
No.
A male cardinal molting, I think, looks like Darth Vader. Look it up, listeners. Go to Google right now. Male cardinal molting, Darth Vader. Think about it.
Oh, okay. But
all right.
I like them.
So we got a couple pieces of paper here in front of you, more than a couple.
Okay.
And they all have different comedy sports games on them. Okay. So grab 2 games, 2 sheets of paper, and then tell me which game you would rather play in a show and why.
All right. I'm going to not look, and I'm going to shuffle through these.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to take too long, but okay. All right. No, that one. Okay. Okay. All right. My 2 games are Day in the Life and crazy country mixed.
Oh, it's crazy country mixed up hijinks. That must have been cut up.
All right. I was going to say, I don't know crazy.
Do you know crazy country mixed up hijinks?
I vaguely. So maybe if you refresh me on the rules. I know I've seen it.
It's been a minute. I believe it is the game where one team leaves the room.
Right.
The first team does like a minute-long scene. Mm-hmm. And then the team out of the room comes back in. And they watch the team redo their scene. But this time they're going to do it in gibberish. Mm-hmm. And then the team that watched has to get on stage now and perform that scene, swapping out the gibberish with what they think was the English.
Right.
And then they're going to do it all over again with the other team leaving the room.
Gotcha. Okay. We call that Google Translate.
Google Translate.
Yeah, which brings in, sort of a current, IT trend.
Right.
Into it. Although we only play just the one round.
Okay.
Yeah. And that makes it tough because I love Google Translate.
Yeah.
Just the whole idea of how a scene can go wrong in a 3-part translation. I think I'm going to go with a day in the life, though.
Yeah, tell us about day in the life.
Day in the life is just you get an audience member to come up and talk about just a day of their life. Pick a random day, and you get them from when they get out of bed all the way through until when they've gone to bed at that night, and everything that happened in between. And then you just redo the scene in 4 minutes on the stage. I like it because I like a good audience participation, something where you're basing it so heavily on that. But also, I think that a day in life can be very theatrical. Nothing against Google Translate, but it's a little bit of a gag game. It is a scene, but it doesn't go very far. Whereas day in the life, you can really dig into what somebody's life is about.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very funny. People's just basic lives.
Right. It can just be a regular day that you turn into just this crazy fun thing.
And when you're truncating it and making it only 4 minutes long, that's really that infuses all the comedy into it. So, but I would play either of these. But I think if somebody said, pick one, Mr. Packman, like they were a Bond villain, I would, Mr. Packman, pick a game. I can't. You must. I can't. All right. It would be day in the life.
It would be day in the life. Yes, that's a good one. So our last game before we're going to say goodbye, it's a Would You Rather game.
Okay.
So, would you rather... I'm going to pick 2 random cards. I always mix it up a little bit. Would you rather have fish for hands or have eyelashes that grow at a rate of 1 inch per minute?
Indefinitely?
I guess so.
Wow, those would be long eyelashes. 1 inch per minute?
1 inch per minute, or have fish for hands.
Oh my God, then you would have 2-foot long eyelashes. You'd be constantly trimming.
The cartoon picture is a guy with the scissors trimming his eyelashes.
Youch.
And here's the fish hands guy. He's trying to bowl. He can't bowl because he's got fish hands.
And I bowl.
I think you've made your decision.
I'm a fairly mediocre bowler. I'm better than your person off the street. I'm not as good as people who know how to really bowl. I think I would have to go with the eyelashes and just get in the groove of trimming.
Just trim them all the time.
Because honestly, one of the things I enjoy in life is a good handshake.
And people aren't going to want to touch your fish hands.
No, I don't want to touch it like a cold, clammy. I'm assuming, are they live fish or are they dead? Well, they're cold and clammy no matter what.
They're dead now.
Exactly. Yeah. Dead on the hands. It would be weird if they were alive. That'd be even weirder. Yeah,
Stinky
eyelashes.
Eyelashes. Those are tough. The would you rathers are tough.
Right. Maybe I could do something interesting and comb them backwards.
That's what I was thinking. If you set up a system of barrettes or headbands, and so the lashes just grow back, and then you end up just this flowing eyelash.
Wow. Like Crystal Gale's haircut, right? There you go. An 80s reference.
I love my 80s, as you can tell, my 80s references.
You don't know who Crystal Gale is, look that up.
So we're looking up Crystal Gale, and we're also looking up male cardinal molting.
Right.
I'm telling you, think Darth Vader, folks. Yeah. All right, well, thank you, Glenn Packman, for coming. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been so much fun. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. My wonderful listeners appreciate it as well. The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is PJ Rockwell. Feel free to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and inquiries can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Catch you next time.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.